Thank you, Mayor and members of council. I look out here, I see my old scoutmaster out here too, so this is... Thought I was going to be able to get away from Mr. Burglar, but you're still here, sir. Thank you for all the guidance you've given me. Members of council, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to appear before you to speak about our collaborative efforts to enhance school safety in our Redwood City schools. I think it's important to point out that I have Acting Captain Osborne here with me this evening. Acting Captain Osborne is our resident expert in this field. He's been involved in crafting county protocol, Redwood City Police Department protocol, and our response plans for the last 5 or 6 years. So I brought him along to back me up when it comes time for the question and answer period. All right, I seem to have failed the first test here. Perfect, thank you. All right, very good. So first off, I'd like to offer a little bit of historical perspective on how we got here and some of the lessons that we've learned from an unfortunate past. In 1999, we changed our response protocols as law enforcement entities with the Columbine event. We realized at that point that our past practice of waiting outside, establishing a perimeter, waiting for resources to come into play to respond to an active shooter threat at a school was flawed. And it was at that point that we realized the importance of pushing forward law enforcement resources into that environment to do all that we could immediately to mitigate the threats. So that was a lesson learned from Columbine. Then we experienced the events of Sandy Hook in 2012, and we realized the importance of further collaborating with our schools, having law enforcement professionals get to know the school environment, and then work with the school closely on establishing emergency response protocols and then practicing them as well. And then later in 2014, we realized the importance of blending a police and fire response. So now not only do we have law enforcement going in to mitigate a threat, we're partnering law personnel with fire and medical personnel into what was to become known as a rescue task force, moving inside that environment to bring the medical response closer to where the injuries were and establishing what was called the casualty collection point. So those were the big growth steps that were taken up until that point. But one of the things that we realized was that we were responding to the brush fire and putting out that emergency, but we weren't getting at the root cause. So that's where we stand now. Our comprehensive approach to school safety is really a three-prong approach, focusing on education, collaboration, and prevention. From the education side, we have our threat assessment teams and our threat assessment training that we conduct. We have our ongoing collaboration with the Redwood City schools through various programs to include our Adopt a School program and further partnering with a coalition for safe schools and communities and other first responders in the San Mateo County area. And then prevention, working closely with the County Office of Education to conduct threat assessments, and then more specifically, the Redwood City Police Department's threat assessment program. Next slide. So for the educational component, again, I referenced the 2012 response with Redwood City PD, and that's where we implemented a robust active shooter response program. This was conducted both at the Redwood City School District level and and simultaneously at the Sequoia Union High School District level. And by the 2012-2013 school year, we had trained all the teachers and staff at all the Redwood City schools in active shooter response training. And then we started conducting the drills at the various schools utilizing officers to serve as evaluators. We then partnered with the Coalition for Safe Schools and Communities, and that was really a county-wide effort because what we realized, even though we've got the training to respond to those emergencies, there wasn't a common language between police departments, nor was there a common language between the schools. So that was a big push at that point to develop common response protocols, common language, common tactics throughout the county and with the schools. And a spinoff from that was the development of the Big Five concept, where we focused beyond the active shooter threat scenarios and incorporated common language for secure campus, lockdown barricade drills, evacuations, shelters in place, and then in the event of an earthquake, we have a drop, cover, and hold on drill. So those were a spinoff of the early portions of that training. And then in 2016, we implemented our threat assessment teams. And this was really training that we received from resident experts and also finding other West Coast law enforcement agencies that implemented a similar program in conducting or receiving training from those agencies and then implementing it at the Redwood City Police Department. We have our ongoing collaborations with the schools that I mentioned earlier. The first one is our Adopt a School program, where our law enforcement officers are out on a daily basis with school staff, interacting with the students, the staff, getting to know the kids, getting to know the layout of the campus, getting to know the day-to-day life at the schools. Excuse me. We have our cadet program, which focuses on teenagers and young adults. That really provides a pathway for them into the field of law enforcement. It equips them with basic experiences and training, such as leadership, communication, community service, and other life skills and working skills that can really help them further their career if they wish to pursue a career in law enforcement. We have our Parent Project and Loving Solutions programs, which helps focus a parent's ability to communicate with their own children, stay engaged in their lives, steer them away from the negative influences of gangs, drugs, and alcohol, and also help them learn effective ways to deal with appropriate discipline techniques and stay involved in the engagement of their kids in the school life. We have our Sequoia High School School Resource Officer that is directly involved in the day-to-day activity of Sequoia High School with the students and staff. And then lastly, our school-based family intervention with our juvenile specialist, Manuel Velarde, that provides a variety of services such as counseling to at-risk youth and their parents to ensure that, again, they stay on the straight and narrow path. On the prevention side, we assess threats that are potentially harmful. We also focus on lethal behavior and determine the appropriate level of concern and action required. We can organize our resources and strategy to manage those situations involving persons who pose threats to students, to school staff, and the community. And we maintain a sense of psychological safety with the school community and among the students, the teachers, the parents in the school setting. And what we saw, again, was with this increase of events, we were becoming very adept at the actual response, but we weren't getting at the root cause. And by partnering with Dr. Stephen White, a regional expert in the area of threat assessment and violence prevention, and then looking at a program that was in place at the Salem, Oregon Police Department, we then developed our own internal threat assessment model. We then worked with the San Mateo County Office of Education and other agencies to develop our juvenile threat assessment team, and that program has been in place since the 2016-2017 school year. Next, please. So here's some of the basic information about our student threat assessment team. We work closely with the San Mateo County Office of Education, and currently that threat assessment team, as well as that protocol, is currently in place. To date, we've conducted approximately 20 level 1 threat assessments, and I'll explain what that is next. The team began taking these cases at the beginning of the 2017-18 school year, and this occurred after all of the districts within the county were provided that training in the level 1 threat assessment. And level 1 is that first year. It takes place at the school level. It involves school staff. If school staff might be struggling a little bit with how to conduct that assessment, personnel from the Redwood City Police Department will come in, partner with school staff, and help walk them through that level 1 threat assessment. And since the Parkland shooting, we've conducted 4 of those level 1 assessments. If the school is unable to resolve that particular issue at their level, it's then brought forward to a level 2 assessment, and it's on that MDT team that Acting Captain Osborne sits on and represents the Redwood City Police Department. At the level 2 team, in addition to Redwood City Police Department's representation on that team, we also have representatives from the San Mateo County Office of Education, San Mateo County Council, County Behavior and Health Services, other law enforcement entities, and in this case it would include the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office, juvenile probation, and on occasion where there is need, we'll have a representative from the San Mateo County District Attorney's Office there. And to date, we've conducted approximately 12 level 2 threat assessments. And I'm pleased to say that all of those assessments have ended at that level 2 level. There's nothing that's progressed beyond that. Next slide. The student threat assessment team has many advantages. Specifically, it's accelerated access to the information. You've got a group of people that are all around the table at the same time, simultaneously hearing of the same concerns that are being expressed. The trust has already been built by the working relationships that they have together. They each understand what the other's area of expertise is, so there's immediacy of delivering that assessment, and then also an evaluation of what an appropriate course of action is needed. The referrals originate from frontline personnel at the school level, so we're getting it directly, and then it's then passed on to that level 2 team. And these options provide greater flexibility and intervention, and greater supervision is created. We saw that as a possible misstep in that event in Florida, where the easy response was to expel the student from school, but you lost that connectivity with the student. You lost that opportunity to stay connected and see what other needs were needed in that person's life. And that's where the enhanced monitoring phase comes in. This also creates a much greater opportunity for ongoing case management and then follow-up that is needed. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to entertain any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much, Chief Mulholland. Councilmember Borgens.
Thank you for this report. This is something I think a lot of us have been sitting up here wanting to have, and so I'm really glad you brought it forward. As we go through with your, what's it called, a resource training, and you do that at the school for teachers, staff. As we get new employees, you know, it switches around. How do you do the retraining, or do you offer it on a regular basis? Is it a requirement?
This is an annual basis, and we saw 2 recent events that came out after the Parkland event where we worked the schools to find out what kind of progress they were making, and there was just some discomfort with how the process worked, and that's where we attached personnel from the police department to work closely with them to refamiliarize them with the training that they had received the school year before. So we envisioned conducting that training on an ongoing basis. We stay connected with the schools each year, not only to conduct the response drills, but as a follow-up to that, we'll also make sure that they fully understand what the level 1 assessment entails, and to ensure that their staff is trained.
And then when you do these assessments, and you said happily they haven't risen to a level that you've had to go to the next step. It's all kind of been in-house. Do you do a reassessment of your assessment? I mean, is there a time where everyone sits down and says, okay, let's go over how we handle this? I mean, is there a kind of a debriefing?
Yes, that takes place on an ongoing basis. That level 2 multidisciplinary team meets once a week at the county offices of education in Redwood Shores, and Acting Captain Osborne or his designee will sit on that table. So they can track the progress of those that have risen to a level 2 assessment. And if it becomes to a point where, or if it comes to a point where they then drop off, they're getting the appropriate services that they need, then that we push back down to a level 1. But we would continue to stay engaged as needed at the level 2 level.
Vice Mayor Howard.
Thank you. First of all, congratulations again, Chief Mulholland, on your promotion.
Thank you.
Are you able to provide the training to all levels of our educational system, from elementary through the college district, or are you focusing on certain ones?
I don't think there's any particular focus. Has it been offered yet to the? I'm going to defer to Acting Captain Osborne to clarify.
So the active shooter response training we've conducted at K through 12 level, and it's delivered to staff. I've not offered it to the Kenyatta College. We certainly could. We have expanded it beyond just the schools. Mm-hmm. We've offered it to local businesses and other entities. So it's portable, and we can give it to whoever's willing to take it.
Because it's portable, that sounds great. Mm-hmm. So if they request it, then they certainly could take advantage of the training. Absolutely. Thank you.
And I can think of at least 3 or 4 businesses that have received this training. It's for a variation of it.
Thank you.
Councilmember Mazur.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation. First of all, I want to just say thank you to you and your staff, because this level of coordination I know takes a lot of work, and having attended a few of the meetings early on with that task force, I know that there were a lot of processes and procedures that needed to be figured out. So I was super happy to hear about the common language and And I have been briefed by you in the past about how you were working on active shooter training and that you had also made some modifications to that training as well based on new things that you learned. So I wanted to just ask another question about the threat assessment. So you're doing that with staff on an individual person basis. Am I correct about that?
That's correct. The level 1 is done with school staff. Typically, we would like to have school staff trained to the point that they conduct those assessments themselves, but PD representatives are there to offer guidance through that process until they feel comfortable with it.
And are there ways, I think one of the things that we saw particularly in Parkland, but in some of the other shootings, that students are also know what's happening. They see things posted on social media. They hear things when they're walking around, talking to their peers. And I'm wondering if there's a way for our students to also share any concerns that they might have, either with staff or with our police officers. Is there some procedure that we've worked out for that as part of the threat assessment?
A lot of that is incorporated in the active shooter response drills, so not on the threat assessment side, but on the response side when our personnel go into the schools and conduct the training. And we saw a significant change in the level of attention that was given to our training prior to Parkland. There might have been a more social environment, more joking taking place. After that, this most recent event, the students were abundantly attentive to what we're doing. It seems as though the youth in our community are taking a far more serious view of the training that we're offered. So the steps that they can take and things that they can do to partner with us to help mitigate this potential is introduced at that level.
So when you're doing the training, you're also helping them understand who should they go talk to if they hear something or they're concerned about something that's a fellow student?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's great. That's super helpful because I think that's one of the things we've heard in other communities, that kids don't know where to go. They don't really know who to tell. So the more that we can work to make sure that they understand that there's a place and a process that they can be a part of would be awesome. And I would say you're right. I'll just wrap up by saying you're right that our students here are taking it very seriously, and they're actually planning a rally, just so everybody knows, on March 24th in Redwood City, Courthouse Square. It's student-led, but it's their direct response to what happened in Parkland.
Councilmember G.
Thank you, Mayor Bain. Chief Mulholland.
Thank you.
And thank you for your presentation. I echo all the comments made by council members, and the only thing that I would add is that it's constant training and refreshment, refreshing of the training. Because of the work I do, it's amazing how often, it's almost on a daily basis, a school or a community college campus is in lockdown mode for a threat, and that we constantly have to be ready and be prepared because you never know. And that's just the sad commentary in the world we live in right now. But that's just in the Bay Area, where today my staff was at a community college campus and they had to evacuate all 3 campuses because of a bomb scare. And I was sharing with Councilmember Siebert, and I was meeting with the director of facilities for a school district on the peninsula 2 weeks ago, and he got a call. There was a lockdown on a campus. It is all too real that we have to live with these threats in the world we have today, and to have everybody ready to do the work that you and Acting Captain Osborne and other colleagues are doing is invaluable, to always be ready because the threats are very real. So thank you for all your work, and to everyone else involved.
Thank you.
Councilmember Siebert.
Again, I'm going to echo the congratulations. It's good to see you look good in 4 stars.
Thank you.
Is this, I know from previous work that I did professionally that the good news is this is expanded also to the private school community. And I know that we don't have anything above 8th grade, but have we worked with the private schools in Redwood City community?
Yes, we went early on up into design
tech,
school
right?
at Oracle,
Right.
not just to offer the training, but also to walk through the site and look at some of the technological changes that they've incorporated specific to this scenario. So these are that is being done early on in early stages.
Great. Well, thank you for this. This is one of those things that is somewhere between. I wish we never had to talk about this, and we shouldn't have to. And I'm glad we are. So it's kind of a bittersweet kind of moment, but thank you. And thank you to all your staff for your hard work and your attention to detail on this.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chief Mulholland and Acting Captain Osborne. I appreciate everything that you're doing to help keep our kids safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.